The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Sometimes I'm falling asleep, and then I gotta wake up and rewatch the episode anyways.
Or just rewind it to the part where I remember this, but I don't remember that. Like, it's funny that you can pinpoint the exact moment that you fall asleep.
That you fall asleep.
Yes.
I shouldn't be falling asleep during this stuff, but
But you said last week, and welcome everyone. We're just having this conversation.
Surprise, we're back.
But you said last week that you were going to rewatch Miss Marvel. So did that happen?
No, that did not happen. That did not, and I don't think I needed to be honest.
I actually took your cue because I was going to rewatch Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Which I did.
Okay.
The night before we went to see the Marvels. And I also rewatched the last 3 episodes of Miss Marvel just to reacclimate myself.
That last episode does tie directly into this movie.
Yes, it does. And you actually get that same scene.
Yes, correct.
The end credit scene.
So stuff like that always I'm impressed by. That they're able to tie this stuff together,
or that they had the presence of mind when they were making Ms. Marvel, right? That this is what we're going to do in the movie.
Because I think that's one of the criticisms of this next phase after, Endgame was that there's no cohesive tissue that's really tying any of this stuff together.
You can make it so, though. I can see where you could, because I was very upset when Spider-Man No Way Home came out, because I was thinking that whole setup with the branching timelines in Loki season 1 was going to cause the different Spider-Men to come in.
And it didn't, right.
And it didn't seem to have any, it was a Doctor Strange spell.
Yeah.
But then if you think about it, I'm like, could it be argued that Doctor Strange was able to do that spell because of what was happening in Loki?
Oh, so you're working hard to tie this stuff together. You're working harder than some of these people who are actually working on this.
Spoiler alert. If you have not seen the Marvels, stop right now.
And I know it's brand new. It just dropped in theater literally 2 days ago.
Yeah.
I raced out yesterday. I saw first screening 12:30 on a Saturday, and it was a nice day out. And yet my theater was, I want to say, 3/4 packed.
Really? Because I was disappointed. Again, I go to matinees, so it's difficult to judge,
This was my matinee, yeah.
Really? So, but I will say for a normal Marvel movie, we always go to matinees. And usually for a Marvel movie, I would say it's about half full for like the 10:30 a.m., 11 a.m. show. Okay. There was about 10 people in my theater total. And it makes me sad because I really hope it's not because people are listening to all the chatter out there.
There is a lot of negative crap going on about this movie. And I hate it. The toxic, I don't even want to get into it, the toxic fandom, because we see it with the Star Wars movies, and now we're seeing it with Marvel, and, we're being banged over our head that, there's fatigue and no one wants to see superhero movies anymore. And this stuff sucks. And I don't like Brie Larson because she said something 5 years ago and she hurt my little nerd feelings. Yeah, the negative was before the movie even dropped. There was
it's like it's projecting to only do this.
Yes, right.
It's trying to kill its chances.
Yeah, you're setting it up to fail.
It's all these reviewers. It's not just fanboys. It's reviewers as well saying, "I told you so." We will eventually this was going to happen.
Yeah. No, New York Times, I'm looking at you because there's some very negative reviews out there. So,
because
but that's
it's just
fine.
anything else. You build something up and then just so you can tear it down.
Just so you can tear it down. And listen, Marvel's been a juggernaut. We know that Marvel has just been a monster. But we're right. After coming off from Endgame, because it all seemed to be one big master plan that played out and was so well executed. Like this is like a band, and they spent 30 years coming out with their first album, and it's a monster hit, and it's like, all right, the executives are like, all right, now make another one.
Of course, and I give them all the credit in the world. They're not going to try and repeat themselves, and hopefully all this scuttlebutt about them going after all the original Avengers again, to save face.
Yeah,
I don't know how I feel about that.
That's it. No, I don't. I agree with you. Move on. It's a desperate plea. And listen, Robert Downey Jr. is like, yeah, you want to give me a big payday? I'm back. I don't blame him. You're now setting it up. You could bring this character back. Well, we thought we were going to see that.
They could easily because of the multiversal timeline. Right.
And especially when you get to the end credit scene of...
They could have had this in mind all along, and now if this does actually happen... No, I'm going to say if this actually does happen, all these reviewers are now going to say, "Oh, it's a desperation ploy to get."
It is a desperation ploy. It is desperate.
I don't think that they need to be desperate, though. I just think they got to ride this wave, because what do you do? Because a lot of these things that I'm reading is like, well, they blew it. They blew their hand after Endgame. Like, what are they just supposed to retire now? Now that they've made Endgame?
That's only one. I mean, again. We're still sitting on the Fantastic Four. We're still sitting on the X-Men. We're still sitting on other properties that have not been properly introduced into the MCU that you know of, unless you listen to this review. And then maybe, just maybe.
So all I'm saying going into this is please do not let anything that you read color your decision to see this movie. Yeah, because it doesn't deserve to be sidelined. It needs to be seen, and it needs to be, you need to make up your own mind. And if you're a Marvel fan and you're staying away,
that's on you.
Go to see Aquaman. That's all you got to say.
Well, that looks bad. I don't want to say anything bad about James Wan, but that doesn't look good. And you just bring him Black Manta again. He's got to be like a secondary.
But none of it matters because they're just throwing everything out. They're just getting this movie out to get it out, and that's it. Then you're not going to see this universe anymore. Yeah,
you're right. And I think that there's already been a lot of buzz that he will be recast as Lobo. He's not even going to be playing Aquaman.
So I don't want to turn this into a DC discussion, but I'm just amazed that they're going to put themselves out there for another failure in theaters. They should have just dropped the last 3 on HBO Max and
moved on.
Be done with it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's too much money to listen. If you can get opening box office numbers, and then it'll drop on Max in 2 weeks. I did see that James Gunn did release a little teaser. I think it was on Twitter. I'm not even gonna call it X, with an actual release date for Superman Legacy. Is that what it is? Superman Legacy? Is that what it is?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very much a cartoony Superman logo, but it's 2025, so we got another year. Well, so let's get into it. Let's get into the news, because that does affect some of the stuff that we may be talking about and when we may see it again. The actor strike is over.
Yes, and the star of the very movie that we are going to talk about was on the Tonight Show, just promoting the Marvels. So along with
there you go,
Tom Hiddleston promoting Loki. So they wasted no time getting out there.
Yeah. What else I got to talk about? You want to talk about the movie?
I'm sure it's Christina. I'm sure would argue that it's not a fun time going on these press junkets, but I'm sure the studio. That's where they want them in front of the camera talking about.
I guess when
movies.
You sign those big monster contracts, there's like 12 writers in the back that you got to show up. You got to be interviewed on the red carpet at least 20 times and talk to TMZ and Entertainment Tonight. Mm-hmm. Entertainment Tonight still a thing?
They are unbelievably.
They are. It's still on. Yeah, I'm never home in time. Right, it's like 7, 8 o'clock or whenever that is. So,
Imagine if we were able to nab a celebrity and have them on here. Like
we almost had Chris Hemsworth,
like a Brie Larson. We'd just be like,
Do you remember
after I edited the episode? It would be like 5 minutes long.
You're cool. I like you. So yeah, it looks like SAG-AFTRA officially reached a tentative agreement on a new contract with the studios and streamers last week. It still needs to go and be ratified by the members, but it looks like as of Friday, it was approved by 86% of the union board members. But with anything, not everyone is happy. You're never going to get everything you want, but you immediately have Jeffrey Katzenberg out there predicting that AI is now going to drastically cut the number of workers for animated movies in half.
At least Kevin Bacon is happy enough to do the Footloose dance.
He did do the Footloose dance. You know who else was happy? Jared Leto. He was so happy he climbed the Empire State Building. Did you see this stupid news article?
I was about to say, you're joking. No. Did he climb the outside of the Empire State Building?
Yes, they gave him this is the first time a human being has ever scaled the outside spire of the Empire State Building. It was some stupid thing to promote 30 Seconds to Mars' new album release. And I'm like, where are the biplanes when you really need them? I can't believe you didn't see this. Jared Leto climbing up the outside of the Empire State. Who approved this?
Did he fly in his followers to be on the observation deck?
They were all on the bottom in case he fell. Yeah, they were going to cushion his blow. This guy, you've really turned me off to this guy. So
it took me.
I don't, because I never paid attention. I don't care. I don't lose sleep over this guy. And there he was scaling the outside of the Empire State Building, and he's just so pompous. When they interview him and ask him why he would do this, because it was there. I'm like, oh no, he didn't get shot down, a la King Kong style. That would have made news.
Yeah, as soon as he went up there, Jeff Bridges called the mayor's office. It's like, we need a few nets, but promise me you are not going to kill him.
Poor Jessica Lange. She was like, I'm not doing this again. I'm out. So speaking of apes, did you see the trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes?
Kingdom of these titles are just getting longer and longer.
The more they go on, yeah.
Conquest of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like playing Simon, the memory game at this point.
It's like, how many of them are there? So, yeah, this is like this almost looks like it's now Charlton Heston time. Like it's reset to the point where the original Planet of the Apes takes place.
Because they were hunting humans, right?
Yeah,
they were dressed in animal skins.
Yeah.
And it looked like there was like an underground like subway area, kind of like and like an unearthed city, like there is at the end of Planet of the Apes and beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. So this is not Caesar. This is not our Andy Serkis character. So I don't know. I'm assuming it's probably his son or his grandson at this point. I don't know how long apes live.
Yeah, I just, as good as it's getting, I'm not on board with these movies because of the CGI characters.
They're pretty flawless though. I like them. Obviously the original Planet of the Apes movies are their own thing. But
just give me a guy. Just give me a guy in the gorilla suit. I'm not talking like Conga.
Conga. I'm out with Conga. So that's about all the news I have right now because I was busy seeing this movie.
The Marvels.
Yes. So yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of bad chatter going on with this, and so it's no secret that you and I are, card carrying Marvel zombies. I've been reading Marvel comics since I was probably 6 or 7. I had a Fantastic Four and a Spider-Man and Incredible Hulk. And obviously when Marvel had the rights to Star Wars, they were geniuses because they would put in-house ads for all their other properties. So all of a sudden I'm like, Daredevil, who the hell is that? Iron Man, Captain America. And I'm sure I was exposed to that stuff because I think there was like 60s cartoons. They were not necessarily animated. They were more like moving comic book panels.
Yeah. But more importantly, they had theme songs.
Yeah.
That were earworms.
That we still know. Yeah. So, and they've been spoofed a couple times in these movies as well. But the X-Men, just opened up my world. I'm happy that we actually carved out a place in our schedule to be able to talk about this. And
So
especially
quickly,
because
yeah, you're right on the cusp of it being released as well.
yeah, we can't wait. We have to get it out there. We have to spread the word, good or bad, because we don't know which way. Neither one of us speak before this, so nobody knows how we feel about these movies. And sometimes it's a bit of a shock. It's like, what? I loved it. No, it was horrible. This we've seen Carol Danvers. What? She was in the original Captain Marvel.
Yes, she was.
We did get her in Endgame, and she had pretty powerful set piece there where she beat the crap out of Thanos.
Well, she saves Tony Stark from starvation on that spaceship.
That's true. That is true. She does show up there.
Yeah.
So not only do we have her, but we now have Monica Rambeau, who was originally introduced in Captain Marvel, but as a little girl.
Right, because Captain Marvel was set in the 90s, and this is one of the many reasons that I like it, because of even though Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers herself, wasn't on Earth to enjoy the 90s music, so it's not like her character would know the music being played in that movie. Just
appreciate the fact that she fell into a blockbuster.
Yeah, exactly. To give you a sense of place. It's a 90s soundtrack. There's 90s references, and I loved it. Loved the original Captain Marvel.
Yeah, you really did like it. I walked away the first time kind of feeling indifferent to it. I think I've grown on it a little bit.
I only doubled down on it when I was watching it as a refresher for this movie, because I think one of your complaints is that the character of Carol Danvers was kind of like a cipher. But again, it's because she doesn't know who she is. I think Brie Larson is doing exactly what she needed to do in that movie.
So, okay, to your point, whenever Kamala Khan is on screen, I had a ass grin on my face. I loved this character so much, and I enjoyed the camaraderie between these three characters. But yeah, Carol comes off very stoic.
Well, again, I think that she hasn't really gotten...
That is identity. Yeah, because we do get into a little bit where you got the Kree, and everyone's calling her the Annihilator.
Yeah,
which is cool. I want a cool nickname.
The Kree, kind of, just as a really quick refresher on the first Captain Marvel, she gets her powers from basically the Tesseract, your favorite MacGuffin.
Yeah, it's everywhere you want to be.
Because she was a test pilot, and she's working with Annette Bening, who was Mar-Vell. She was a Kree operative on Earth who was a sympathizer with the Skrulls, because both of these movies, the background is still that Kree-Skrull conflict, right? The Kree want to annihilate the Skrulls from the galaxy, but there are some Kree that are Skrull sympathizers, and Mar-Vell is one of these. So she's developing some kind of light speed engine on Earth. She's posing as a Dr. Larson, I think her name is, like Air Force scientist, pilot, right? Yeah. So she gets Carol Danvers to test pilot this thing, and it blows up. And Danvers absorbs the energy, because the engine of this light speed thing was powered by the Tesseract. So it's pretty much the Tesseract that gave her her powers. Yeah. And she absorbed it, became Captain Marvel. She didn't really know. It was kind of like a Greatest American Hero situation where she didn't know what she could do.
Yep.
Jude Law, one of these bad Kree guys, comes down to try to stop Larson and get this engine that she's made. All he finds is Carol Danvers unconscious. He reads that she's absorbed the energy, so he kidnaps her and makes her believe that she's a Kree soldier. So for most of the movie, it's Carol Danvers discovering that the Kree have been lying to her.
Right.
And that she's been taken.
Yeah, she thinks
has these
Jude Law is like her buddy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is the conceit of the Marvel universe, which I like, the cinematic universe, which is in comic books, the Skrulls are the bad guys. They're shape-shifting bad guys. The Kree are the good guys, and they completely flip the scripts and they continue. I will tell you, these Skrulls, these poor Skrulls just get the short end of the stick every time.
They do.
They're just getting screwed left and right in this
because
universe.
Secret Invasion did them no favors. So
no, a couple bad apples in the cart, and suddenly they're all no
wonder they're angry. The Skrulls.
Right. Yeah, they can't catch a break. They're like Marvel's, punching bags at this point.
But yeah, I agree that it was very surprising to me because the first 3/4 of the movie Captain Marvel paints them as villains,
right?
Which was what you're expecting until you get a different aspect.
Yeah, and as comic book fans, you like, oh, well, the Skrulls are the bad guys. We all know that.
Yeah.
They were the first alien race that the Fantastic Four went up against.
And let me just tell you, Ben Mendelsohn as Talos. It's one of my favorite characters in all of the MCU.
He's kind of missing from this movie.
Unfortunately, he's now missing from the MCU. If you've seen Secret Invasion. Yeah, that was not a good move. But we do get Nick Fury. Yes,
and a substantial role at that. He's not just a little cameo.
Again, Secret Invasion leads somewhat into this movie where Nick Fury has left Earth again, and now he's on this orbiting Saber, they call it now. It's not SHIELD. It's not SHIELD anymore.
There's too many acronyms in the Marvel universe because I think there was also Scepter and there's swords and you're running out of.
I'm waiting for Sphincter to appear.
That was the black hole at the end of the universe. It just sucked you in. Oh no. Saber. Yeah, so this is like the space station just kind of up in the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah, not unlike the green slime, by the way.
That is true.
Yeah,
a little better special effects, although it was invaded by little tiny pod-like
tiny blobs.
That could have. Well, the Flurgan. You get the little tentacles going. They could have looked like the green slime creatures.
Hey, I think that Kamala Khan.
Yes.
She was in heavy competition with those Flurkin in terms of loving cuteness. What I was seeing on screen. Yeah.
Yeah. I loved her character, and obviously they bring in her parents and her brother, so there's this family dynamic going on. And I just absolutely, it opens when you're first introduced to her. Obviously, she's a kid who's still in high school, but she's obsessed with Captain Marvel, and so her room is just filled with fan art. Just pretend that it's not Taylor Swift. It's Captain Marvel. And she's got cartoons. We're besties. I actually named myself after I got my superpowers after her. When we meet, we're going to do that. So it's really kind of this cute hero worship.
Yeah. And I just want to point out that per this movie, Funko Pops exist in the MCU.
You did see those.
I did see the Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel Funko Pop. Yeah. And that's actually a fun reveal when Carol actually locks her eyes on this room. It's like, holy crap, what the hell am I getting into? So, and what's her name? The little girl, Iman Vellani. Like, she's never acted before. Like, they pulled her off the street. She auditioned. She got this role. And she kills it. Like I said, I was completely into this character, and I just big ass grin on my face every time she opened her mouth.
Of course, we have Tiona Paris as Monica here. Yeah. So just like Kamala, she was also introduced in a Disney Plus TV show, being WandaVision.
Let me get a nice little explanation of how she got her powers, because obviously the last time Carol saw her, she was a little girl.
Right. So you walked through a witch hex.
Yeah.
As if this is just, in the MCU, that's a normal everyday occurrence.
Well, you're talking to somebody who's flying through space without a helmet now, and a alien space cat on her shoulder. So, witch hexes are. I did pick up on this, though, which is there are a lot of octagon motifs going on throughout this movie, which I think even go all the way back to WandaVision.
Well, I really like the fact that there's a through point for these jump points in the MCU, because they're used. If you went on the ride Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind during the pre-show, you get Glenn Close there as the head Xandarian, right? So she explains that Xandar invented these jump points that you see used in not only the Marvels, but Guardians of the Galaxy and a bunch of other stuff.
They should have copyright them, but
I know.
Didn't, so everyone's
but as I'm watching this, I'm like, are Xandarians Kree? Is that why they're using these jump points? But then I went on MCU Wikipedia, and Xandarians are their own race. So apparently the Kree appropriated these jump points.
Not anymore.
Well, Xandar wasn't like destroyed; it was decimated. So it's still there.
Oh, so it's still there.
Yeah.
Okay. So then why didn't Dar-Ben just go there?
I don't know.
I will tell you right now all right, I'm going to lay my hands. This is probably the most fun I've had in a Marvel movie since Ragnarok.
Bully for you. I
I
really
know.
liked it.
My son was like, that's a bold statement. And I'm like, I enjoyed the hell out of this. There are some goofy ass moments. I mean, some silly, goofy moments. And I think these are the things that people are crying about. Turn off your brains.
But if that's what makes these movies so good, is that they inject them with humor,
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Well, that's why the Guardians work so well, right?
Exactly.
They don't take that was the problem I had with Ant-Man Quantumania. It took itself way too seriously.
And directed by Nia DaCosta.
Yes.
Who we've talked before on this show because she did the new Candyman.
Yeah, she wrote
not
that.
too long ago.
Yeah.
But she likened this movie to like an Avengers sort of team up where the team is coming together. And it very much is that. And that's the charm of this movie. These three characters interacting. Carol Danvers. I think she still has many issues she's working through. She says in this movie straight up that she doesn't have all her memories back.
Right.
She's been on this spaceship by herself for decades, right?
With a cat.
With a cat.
Alien
she doesn't know how to talk to people. So it's awkward, her relationship at first with these other two.
Selling me up. Right. And when Monica calls her out, she's like, you said you'd be right back. And then you find out that, she screwed up with this whole relationship with the Skrulls and the Krees. And we do get a little flashback to her taking out the Supreme Intelligence, which I would have loved to have seen that entire sequence, but
because that's what she threatens to do at the end of Captain Marvel. Like that's what you think that you're going to see in a sequel to Captain Marvel, because she beats Jude Law and she's like, I'm taking out the Supreme Intelligence, because that's really what lied to her. So
sure. Yeah. And this is where she gets the name the Annihilator. And she's like, I needed to fix this before I could come back. I was embarrassed. And Monica's like, I just want my aunt. I don't care that you're Captain Marvel. So but you hit the nail on the head with the charm. It is very enjoyable to see these three characters together. And I will say there is a fight sequence early in this movie where their powers sync up and they keep switching places. This has got to be an editor's nightmare, but this is so much fun, where every time they're punching somebody or they're using their powers, they switch places. And all of a sudden, it's Captain Marvel and instead of Ms. Marvel. And they're falling through the ceilings or she's falling through the air because Captain Marvel was flying at the time. Yeah. So it is just, it's chaos. You got a fight going on in Kamala's home with the parents and the brother. Monica's on the space station and Captain Marvel's out in space on some space moon or whatever. And
I love the fact that they did retain the parents, the family of Kamala for the movie.
I think that's what keeps this character grounded. But yeah, the mom's great. I love it. And the dad's just kind of like along for the ride.
It makes you realize that whenever a character comes over from one of these TV shows, they can't obviously bring the whole cast with them.
No,
because you're thinking, where's the brother's wife? Where's the friends? They just got, only so many characters we can concentrate on here.
And there's a lot. Yeah. Because even though, there's a lot going on here. Although I will say the plot itself is pretty bland.
Well, I'll give it this. It does what it needs to do, and it's not like a 2+ hour odyssey. It's streamlined. For one of these, it's streamlined. It's an hour and 40 minutes. If you're hesitant, like sometimes I am, about sitting down for the long haul, it moves very quickly.
That is one of the positives that these reviews are throwing out there. Well, it's not long. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe you got a better handle on this than I did, but the reason that they're switching is because they all have light-based powers.
Yes. Yeah. And somehow with because the bad guy, Dar-Ben, she finds one of the quantum bands, which I think Quasar wore. And I don't know, but Ms. Marvel, Kamala, has the other one.
Yeah, there's a pair.
It was like some family heirloom or whatever. So she's wearing one. And so I think when Dar-Ben puts it on, it kind of activates it. Because I think they point out that Kamala can take light powers and manifest them almost like Green Lantern.
Right. And it's a physical matter.
Yes, she's making like little glass, portal steps that she can run on, or these giant fists. Monica can see it,
sense it,
and she uses it so she can kind of phase almost like Vision. And there's actually a joke because throughout the entire movie, Kamala's trying to come up with a code name for Monica, who doesn't want a superhero code name. And she even says at one point, she goes, Vision. And then Carol's like, yeah, no. Yeah. And then
she keeps coming back to Professor Marvel, though.
Yes, which is pretty funny. Although in the comics, and I was mad that they didn't go down this road, in the comics, her code name is Photon.
That was never mentioned?
That Photon was never mentioned. I'm like, you didn't even get there. But Monica's used different names over the years, and the other ones is Spectrum and Pulsar. And I'm like, that just sounds like my local cable provider. So, but yeah, we never get Photon. And she was Captain Marvel. To be honest with you, in the comics, she was the second Captain Marvel after Marvel.
And she was in the Avengers. Was she not?
Yeah, she was in Avengers. You are correct. Yeah, Carol didn't become... She was Ms. Marvel when she was first introduced, and then became Captain Marvel later. But I think there was like 6 other people who had that name beforehand. And then when we get to the end of the movie, there's actually a tie-in to the character that Carol becomes later in the comic series.
And of course, Carol herself has the power of the Tesseract, so she can do photon blasts, right? So what did they say that she could do, really? They broke it down really like you can manifest, you can sense, and then Carol, they said you could do something, and I can't remember now.
Yeah, I don't remember either. So like I said, I just came off this yesterday, and I did my best to get as many notes as possible. I'm like, Jim will be all over this.
but some of the switcheroo stuff going on is because of these wonky jump points.
That's also playing fast and loose with what's going on with this Darben.
Because Darben, again, the Kree are bad guys here, and Darben is Kree. So the setup, you're kind of in the dark until it's revealed through flashback what Darben's really ultimate goal is here. Is that Carol, as the Annihilator, because what she does here gives her that name, goes back to Hala, which is one of the homeworlds of the Kree, destroys this supreme intelligence. When she does that, the whole world of Hala falls into chaos. Civil war, the atmosphere becomes unbreathable.
Black Eyed Peas show up.
So what Darben is doing is, with these jump points, is sucking up resources from other planets that are somehow near and dear to Carol's heart to get revenge on what she did to the supreme intelligence.
But I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, so you're going to this planet and you're stealing their air. You're going to go to this planet and steal its sun. And now you're going to go here and steal the water. Just go to Earth and take the whole thing over. It's one-stop shopping. Why are you wasting your time?
We got it all. Yeah, we got it all.
That's right. We even have a Saber space station up there.
Maybe that one planet where they all sing, maybe it's all drinkable water. Maybe it's not salt water. Who knows?
Can I tell you, and I know there's going to be someone listening to this who is cringing right now. I love that scene.
That was great. And you know what else I love?
Phenomenal.
Talking about singing when they play the song from Cats during the Flirkin
memories thing. Yeah.
But getting back to what was the name of that planet? The all-water planet. I got it in my notes somewhere.
Hexagon?
No, it starts with an A.
Oh, you're right.
Aladna.
And we find out that Carol is actually a princess. She married the prince as a convenience to keep a war or something going. But this guy who's playing the prince, Prince Jan, he looks like he's cosplaying Aqualad from Teen Titans Go. I'm like, and he was like so pretty. I'm like, I'd probably marry this guy too. But these people are like, she goes, I'm kind of a big deal on this planet. So she's downplaying it as they get there.
And Kamala's like,
you're a big deal on my planet.
Yeah, you're a big deal everywhere.
No,
and then she's like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah. And then people, so this is how they communicate, is in dance and is in song. So they go through this whole, I mean, it turns into like a Bollywood.
But no, I thought it turned really into like a Disney musical. That's what it turned into.
Yeah, it probably was a Disney-fied, especially after watching the Wish trailer.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So, But then he turns around and starts speaking in just English, with her, and she goes, "Oh, he's bilingual." So
Yeah, he doesn't. He can understand
you don't need
non-singing
to,
language.
I know,
Yeah.
you're right. I don't need to sing back to him, but they do. She changes her gown, and they have this little, a Beauty and the Beast type dance. This was glorious.
Yeah.
I was completely on board. By the time you get to this, I'm like, all right, this is just so out there and weird that I'm in. Like if this showed up in Guardians of the Galaxy, I think a lot of people would probably just, okay, this is what we're doing.
You
But
see,
for
a lot
whatever
of people might point to this as the Bill Murray moment of this movie.
Yeah.
And hey, I love the Bill Murray moment as well in Quantumania. I know you didn't.
Yeah,
I know you
not.
didn't.
I did not, because it was like, oh, look, it's Bill Murray. So when they realize that they have to kind of work together, and this is, Kamala's like, we're a team, we're twinsies. But there's a montage where they're trying to sync up their powers so that, when they switch places, they can continue to just do what the other person was doing. And that was a fun thing too. Again, charm. It's very charming. I had a teenager behind me, and she probably was 14. And she was just like me. She was just, you could hear her smile behind me every time Kamala was on screen.
You could hear her lips pulling back from her teeth.
Yes. And of course, Goose is regular Goose. And we get this great scene where all of a sudden these stupid pods start showing up, and they think they're being invaded in the space station. And no, they're baby Flurkin. And that's where we get this, the space station is going to go down. We can't take all these people off. Oh, well, let's just have the cats eat them. It's easier. She's like, we're really doing this. We're actually herding cats. And then it launches into Memories from the Cats musical. And it is glorious.
It is. It is
absolutely glorious. And you hear it over the intercom. They're like, just let the cats eat you. Just let the cats stop running.
But nobody is listening. They're all running in panic. Yeah.
That's hard.
But it's not all fun and games. There are some dark moments. We talked about the Skrull before. They can't catch a break. The Skrull, Carol apparently did find a planet for them, for the Skull refugees. And this is the first of the 3 planets. That,
it took her long enough, right?
That Dar-Ben.
I think that was right. That was their whole plan when she left. Yeah.
So initially, before you realize what Dar-Ben is doing, you think she's just being mean to the Skrulls again. She's just destroying the Skrulls. But nope, that's the planet that she's sucking up the air from, and she takes it from them, not necessarily because they're Skrull. I'm sure that figures into it, but because Carol found this planet for them. This was
a complete Mega Made Spaceballs moment.
Yeah,
and just sucking the air out of the atmosphere.
And I like the fact that Dar-Ben is an accuser, because she's got the hammer, right? Like the Ronin type hammer. Yeah. So Ronin wasn't the only accuser in the Kree.
There was a couple.
Yeah.
We're all accusing you. And we got Tessa Thompson. Little cameo as Valkyrie.
So does this mean that those few Skrull that they managed to save are now living in New Asgard? On Earth.
It has to be. She's in charge. Yeah. She's in charge of New Asgard. Yeah. Although she had an accent that I didn't quite pick up. I don't remember her character speaking quite like that. I don't know.
No, with the English accent, I think she always did.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
It just seemed a little off-putting to me. Yeah. So Tessa Thompson.
It's a really fraught scene though. Before we get to Tessa, when they're trying to save the Skrulls, and Kamala's freaking out because she realizes that like countless others are going to die that they can't save because there's only so much room on their spaceship. And you see all the little figures get sucked up or crushed or crushed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of Skrull squishing.
Yeah. Yeah. Tessa does arrive with the Bifrost. So,
as soon as you saw that, you're like, all right.
Yeah. So as you said, Dar-Ben is doing all this, world destroying stuff because she now has one of the quantum bands. That is the twin of the band that Kamala has. So if you wear both of them, because that's what now she's doing. She found the one on some distant planet. She couldn't find the other one, and doesn't realize until about halfway through the movie that Kamala's wearing the other one.
Yeah, and at one point, Nick Fury even tells her, he goes, don't let her get that one. He's like, all right, she's getting that one.
But at one point, and even though I rewatched Ms. Marvel, I didn't really follow. At one point towards the end, Kamala doesn't have the band, yet she's
she
still
can
able to
still do it.
save. So she has that power innately. She doesn't need the band to do that.
I think that somehow augments her power. I know in the comic book universe, they have now made her a mutant.
Well, they do at the end of the Ms. Marvel series.
They do make her.
Her friend says, I've been studying your blood, as if he's like a top-notch scientist. He's just another teenager. I've been studying your blood and I see a mutation. And Kamala says, forget it. That's just another label. So it's a throwaway.
Okay. So there you go. Yeah. All right. So they're at least leaning into that, because obviously at the end of this movie, we are charging headlong into Deadpool 3 is my take.
Yes. Yeah. So spoiler alert.
Yes. We're getting there. We're getting towards spoiler territory.
Yes.
We already spoiled this movie.
So I will also want to know, we bring this up every single time we talk about a Marvel movie, but we know, because they tell you several times in this movie, that Monica was blipped, right? So, and you see it tragically in WandaVision. She's blipped when she's sitting at her mother's deathbed.
Yeah.
And then when she comes back to it and her mother's long gone, 5 years. Yeah. So, but begs the question, who else was blipped? Was anybody in Kamala's family blipped? It's never talked about.
No, until it needs to be a plot point.
Were they all spared? Because according to what you're told here, you assume that nobody else was blipped in this movie, but Monica. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. For the purpose of this movie, it doesn't matter. But yeah, you're right. She ends up, Dar-Ben ends up tearing this huge hole in space-time. We got all kinds of messes going on here
because of the jump points being, wonky and used to, nefarious purposes. At the end, after they've beaten Dar-Ben, they have to close the one that's open, or of course it's going to suck everything into oblivion. So Monica sacrifices herself to do so, to close.
They didn't see this coming. It's like, I got this.
Yeah.
Although Carol, we see her like fly super fast, and yet somehow she was just slow enough to not reach that rip before it sealed. And Monica's on the other side.
But she's not dead. She's not dead. Nope.
She's not. We've
already established that there are alternate realities. And so Monica, after this is a mid-credits scene. You don't get a post-credits scene, although you do get a nice little
you get the
callback sound effect. Yeah. So if you loved Goose,
it's not worth that sound effect. Is not worth sitting in the theater for the next 12 minutes.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But you do get the mid-credits scene where Monica wakes up in a hospital bed, and the roles have been switched. Her mother is sitting at her side this time.
Is it her mother?
But is it her mother? Somebody that looks like her.
So correct. It is the actress who plays her mother, Lashana Lynch, who was Maria Rambeau, Carol's best friend.
And of course, Monica's like, "Mommy," and she's like, "I'm not your mother."
Not my mama.
And then suddenly in walks Frasier.
Hank McCoy himself, the Beast from the X-Men.
Yeah. And of course, he's worked it out. You must have come from an alternate reality. If
he figured calling
her mom,
really quick. Yeah, I think you gave. She's like, son of a. But I'm surprised because we had Nicholas Hoult also has played that character.
Yes.
Kelsey Grammer played that character. Is he just promoting the new season of Frasier on Peacock? He's like, I'll come back. And he mentions Charles. So obviously we have an Xavier mention. But then Monica's quote unquote mom stands up and she's in full superhero suit, and that's Binary. And if you're not familiar, Binary was another superhero role that Carol Danvers became. So if you want to do a very condensed history of Carol Danvers, she was Ms. Marvel in Rogue, who was an X-Men, but back then she was a villain. Not only stole Carol's powers, but her memories. And so Carol was sidelined for quite a while. And then she was abducted by the Brood, and they experimented on her. And she ended up getting these powers, which she can generate heat, light, and radiation. And she became Binary. So that's what that character's suit looked like to me.
Right.
Was Binary.
Mm-hmm.
But then you just kind of like they just kind of tease that and them are out. So we don't really know. So we all knew that this was coming because Marvel acquired the 20th Century Fox years ago now.
Yes.
Quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So we knew that the X-Men were getting reintroduced at some point. We've been teased. We know Deadpool 3 is coming with Hugh Jackman playing Wolverine. That's no secret.
Yeah, so Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman, is in the reality there where Kelsey Grammer played Beast in those movies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's the only person who's ever played Wolverine, although he said he was done. So what we're establishing is that all these other side movies, whether it's Sony Spider-Man or if it's New Line Cinema's Fantastic Four, or if it's 20th Century Fox's X-Men movies, these are all alternate realities. These are all alternate story timelines,
right?
Not branches like Loki, though.
But why wouldn't they be? What are they if they're not branches?
Well, no, because to be honest with you, Marvel could have just dismissed that and just rebooted all those characters. So they're purposely bringing some of those characters back in, and we've seen a little bit of that even in the Spider-Man movies with what's his name, J. Jonah Jameson, but
my question is, what are those branches if they are not alternate realities? Are they two different things now? I think that would be too much.
I don't know. Well, they're going to have to explain it to us, but yeah, we have now established that the X-Men, at least some of the X-Men in one form or another, exist in the MCU.
Of course, spoiler alert for Loki season 2 now. If you've watched Captain Marvel, but not Loki, now stop listening. Now they've set it up at the end of Loki season 2 where these realities can exist. They're no longer, it's no longer, panic time where they all have to be pruned or destroyed or whatever. Now they all coexist together. So did just the very events of Loki cause these?
Well, this is what you were saying before, which is at the end of season 1 of Loki, when all the branches go haywire after Sylvie kills He Who Remains. Like, you expected that to kind of immediately play out in those Spider-Man movies, and it wasn't really explained. So now I'm thinking, it's all got to tie in. Yeah, it's all got to be part and parcel at this point, especially the way Loki ends.
Right. So, but before we get even to the end of this movie, we are not talking about the other cameo at the end.
This was nice. This was a nice callback all the way to the original Iron Man 2008 end credit scene.
So we get another character from a Disney Plus show.
Pizza Dog. We got Pizza Dog.
I wonder if Pizza Dog and Goose are going to meet ever.
OMG. Are we going to get Super Friends style Wonder Pets Avengers?
Maybe.
Pet Avengers. There you go. Lockjaw, maybe.
So Kamala summons Kate Bishop.
Ooh, Hawkeye.
Nick Fury style. Just like at the end of Iron Man. What was the line? You're about to step into a much bigger universe
or something. Yeah, something along those lines.
And then Kate Bishop asks her, "Where'd you get that tablet?" "It was in my couch."
Yeah, I found it. Yeah, it was on my couch.
Yeah, this sets up Young Avengers.
That's my guess. Young Avengers. Yeah. Because we've talked about this, and I've been sitting on my Young Avengers #1 for quite some time, is the fact that all these characters in one form or another have been introduced. Patriot was introduced in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Let's see, now Wanda's children are MIA because they don't exist, but Wiccan and I can't think of the other kid's name, but those
could exist in an alternate reality.
Yeah, well, that's just it, right? So it looks like Kamala is now recruiting for a Young Avengers. She doesn't mention Young Avengers. She said something like a teen team or something like that, and Kate immediately tells her, "I'm 23."
Yeah, she's like, "Did you think you were the only kid superhero?" And
right, she goes, "I'm 23." Yeah,
we talked about this when we were talking about the Hawkeye show. Is that they increase the age of the character of Kate Bishop for whatever reason, because she is more of a kid in the comics, correct?
Yeah.
The character of Kate Bishop.
Yeah, they're all. Oh, Casey Lang, Ant-Man's daughter.
Yeah,
she is stature. So, and we've already seen her with her superpowers in Quantumania.
They need to get Peter Parker in there.
he could be the statesman.
He'd be like, really? I want to be in the real Avengers.
Well, you know what's interesting? Now I'm thinking about it. Iron Lad is actually a Kang variant.
Oh.
Interesting. Because we're going to talk about that when we talk.
We also
Loki.
got Iron Heart, right?
Iron Heart is Riri Williams. Yeah, she makes sense. They probably are not going to bring it. They're probably going to, because Riri's already been introduced. So it's probably not going to be the exact lineup of Young Avengers that's in the comics.
But we also have a kid in. Remember at the end of Love and Thunder,
oh, that's right, Thor's daughter,
adopted daughter.
Love. Yeah, so you could bring her in. Sure, why not? They probably age her up a little bit.
Yeah,
you don't need a toddler running around, but so I would assume that would probably be a Disney Plus show. Regardless, I'm in.
Also, I wasn't quite sure what was going on at the end when everybody was moving boxes back into the house at Louisiana. Is Kamala moving into this house? What's going on?
Well, their house was destroyed during that fight sequence. So it looks like Carol is renting out Monica's home while she's MIA into space.
I don't know, because that's a tall order. You got their whole life is in Jersey City.
Right.
That can't be. They're probably maybe they're helping Carol move. I don't know.
Because she was bringing all of her stuff that the cat was puking back up, all of her living room stuff. That was a weird flex, because it's like, all right, so we got a beautiful house, but I don't need to be in Louisiana, especially when you're living in Jersey City. But I guess so. I don't know when we're gonna see these characters again. I thought this was fun.
Yeah, and it also ends, and I like that they don't pawn off the entire Kree race as villains, because they're just victims as well. And then Carol comes and saves the day for Hala and reignites their son.
Yes, which is kind of the opposite of what Jean Grey did when she was Phoenix. She sucked a couple stars dry. All right, we're showing our comic nerddom right now.
Yeah.
So there you go. I love this.
I did as well. I
was giddy. Like I said, I came home, I texted my son, I said, this may be the most fun I've seen since Ragnarok. And he thought that was a little bold, but I am staying by it. I'm sticking with it for right now. And most of my nerdy comic book friends online are basically saying the same thing, that don't listen to the critics. There's some bad juju out there. I don't know. People are trying to shoot this down. Like you said, we build it up just so we can tear it down. And IMDb, the first 20 reviews will say that this is the worst Marvel movie ever made, and that this is the final nail in the coffin. That's not the case at all.
No, that's laughable, that statement.
Yeah, no, we'll hold that for Dark World.
No, I love Dark World.
I know you do. I know
you'll hold that for Love and Thunder is what you meant to say. I had such a bad taste in my mouth after Love and Thunder that the goodwill that I imparted on Quantumania, I think, played a huge part in me liking that movie, because you and Christina weren't down with Quantumania, and I liked it. And I will admit that it was probably wish fulfillment on my part. But this movie was bona fide. It was great, and I had a great time. And it delivers. It is fun.
Yeah. It is fun. It is lighthearted. Like you said, there's charm and character between the camaraderie between these three characters is palpable. It is. Yes. You genuinely felt, and I think that probably because Iman, she is a kid thrust into this world. Like, from what I understand, when she first was on set with Sam Jackson, like, she hid behind Brie Larson. And Brie Larson was like, all right, you're kidding, right? And she goes, no, that's Samuel L. Jackson right there. Yeah. So she carries that through. She is in awe of these characters. And
she doesn't stop being in awe during the movie, which is great.
And she rambles like a teenager. Yeah. Yep. When you like diarrhea of the mouth. I don't know what to say. So I'm just going to keep talking, just like I do on this show sometimes. Yeah. I don't know what to say, so I'll just keep saying stuff.
I think injecting her into this and injecting Teyonah Parris, Monica, is very similar to the way that Bruce Banner Hulk came into Ragnarok and like gave a breath of fresh air to the Thor franchise.
I buy that.
I think Brie Larson rises to the challenge. You know, again, I know that her character is going through a lot of things, but I loved seeing her interact with these other two. And if they continue the series, and I really hope they do, when I say series, I mean Captain Marvel specifically,
right?
That I really hope they continue with these three as a trio somehow. You know, bring Monica back into it. Yeah, but please, you know, it just opened this past weekend. The box office numbers don't look good, and I really think it's because of all this negativity that's out there. It's keeping audiences away. Remember that the original Captain Marvel did like over $1 billion, right, worldwide.
Yeah. We're also talking pre-COVID. There's a lot of people who are just never going to go back to the movie theater.
Yeah, but
it's a Marvel movie. It'll show up. But it's a Marvel movie. But
exactly, it's a Marvel movie. That the Marvel movies have usually been the exceptions. Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, I
think Passion Plea. Please go see this movie.
Yeah, agreed. I wholeheartedly love this.
Yeah. So what kind of buckets would we give out of 5?
I'm going 4.25.
4.25.
This was solid entertainment. I was giddy.
Yes. Yep.
This was, and because even though we championed to get this on the schedule, I had low expectations and really little interest because I did not care for Captain Marvel that much. You've kind of explained that maybe there's a reason that this character acts, and not everyone needs to be, you know, flippant and throwing, you know, catchphrases around, but I was pleasantly surprised.
That's sometimes the best way to go into a movie, as I've often said, with the lowest expectations possible. So you've got nowhere to go but up. Yeah. So I agree. I thought it was a great time. Loved all the left turns that it takes. Loved Iman as Kamala. As you said, she is indispensable to this movie. Loved the musical interlude in the middle, and especially the flirkin.
Yes.
Does this mean that could we describe those things as goose eggs? Then?
Oh, yes. Why did someone not do that?
I'm going to give it a solid 4 buckets out of 5.
That's pretty high for you.
Yeah.
What'd you give Quantumania?
I don't remember.
A
3.5. I think I gave it.
Maybe, and you love that. So
I did.
This has a lot. So yes, go check it out, please. Do it now.
Yep, still out there. It's still out there. Go see it. So I thought that for our concession treat this week, you know, we're a little bit off schedule because of our recordings.
I know. We did kind of.
But it is my turn. So technically, it is my turn. So I hope you didn't bring anything because I've got something ready to go.
Okay, bring it on. Is it
even though you don't generally figure in whatever concession treat into our artwork for the week, I still couldn't get it out of my head that I wanted to do something color coordinated with Captain Marvel.
Oh,
just like remember we did when we
Corvette
did the first
Summer?
cap. Yes, I insisted on Corvette Summer because the Corvette in that looked like Captain Marvel's suit. So I went the same route here. I was desperately looking for a candy wrapper or package that would kind of mirror Captain Marvel's blue, red, and gold suit, or yellow, arguably, rather than gold. So originally I came up with the perfect match visually, which was the bit of honey.
Bit of honey. Okay. Yep.
But that I find so boring. And I'm allergic to everything that is in Bit of Honey. So I couldn't even sample it to talk about it. Funny. So that was off the table. So then I had to get a substitute.
Literally off the table.
Literally off the table. So what I came up with was one of the most classic candies. And it is kind of a color match. It's yellow, blue, and red rather than gold. The Charleston Chew. So,
hey, wow. They still make them?
I've got a box of them right here.
I think my brother used to eat those Charleston Chews.
Yes, to answer everyone's question, it was named after the dance, the Charleston. That's how old this candy is. It was invented in 1925 by the Fox Cross Candy Company out of Massachusetts. And yes, it was really kind of jumping on the bandwagon over the fad of the Charleston. So, you think you have fun dancing the Charleston? Get a load of this. You can have this. You can munch on this candy as you're.
I would just say, don't try and eat one of these while you're doing the Charleston, or it'll be the Charleston choke.
That's why they make these now in little mini.
I was going to say, they used to be long bars.
You can still get the bar, but take a look at this. I'm showing Jeff now. It's a tiny thing. It's very palatable, but as you said, if you take a big honking bite of like a bar, you'll be
yes, you gotta work overtime on that one.
So this is nougat covered in what they call on the box a delicious chocolatey coating. Now this makes me suspect right now.
That's code for not chocolate.
Chocolatey coating? Wait a second.
Is there a TM next to that?
So I'm looking at the ingredients, and one of them is cocoa. But why don't they just call it a chocolate coating? I couldn't get to the bottom of this, but so we'll kind of go past this. Originally, in 1925, it was marshmallow nougat, which was in the center of the Charleston Chew, with this chocolatey coating over it. So chewy, yes, but not as chewy as get taffy. It's not really a stuck in your teeth kind of, especially with these little mini nuggets, because they're kind of easy to chew on and then swallow down. But you no longer have that marshmallow flavor. These days, you have vanilla, which is the classic, chocolate, and strawberry. Those three flavors are sold separately. Again, I said 1925, this thing was invented by the Fox Cross Candy Company. Nathan Sloan, who I wasn't quite sure if this was an individual or a company or both, purchased the Charleston Chew from Fox Cross in 1957, and he changed the marshmallow flavor to vanilla. So from 1957 onwards, the main flavor of the Charleston Chew was vanilla. Nabisco purchased in 1980, and that's when probably the biggest promotional push in modern times occurred, because you may remember many Nabisco commercials for the Charleston Chew in the early to mid 80s. I will play one for you right now.
My Charleston Chew is chewy. Louis. Oh, it is chewy, Louis. Louis?
Light nougat and a chocolatey coating make Charleston Chew.
Quite chocolatey and delightfully chewy. And you, Louis?
Yeah, Charleston Chew is chewy, Louis, but not too chewy. That's why great people find great pleasure chewing Charleston Chew by Nabisco.
It fell out of Nabisco's hands in 1988. Warner Lambert purchased it in 1988, company I've never heard of. And finally, in 1993, Tootsie purchased Charleston Chew, and they still own it to this day. So Tootsie meaning the Tootsie Roll. Tootsie. So it kind of makes sense, right? No, not Dustin Hoffman.
Just checking.
But it kind of makes sense. Tootsie Rolls have that chewy.
Yeah.
It seems like it's like a match made in heaven, where Charleston Chew really does kind of belong in the Tootsie. I'm surprised, though, that Tootsie doesn't belong to somebody else, that it's its own corporation. We haven't talked about Tootsie Rolls yet on this show. Nor have we talked about the Tootsie Corporation. This is the first time.
Which is amazing.
So this is who owns Charleston Chew to this day. The minis were introduced in 1998. At one point, I'm not sure when it was Nabisco or someone else, they introduced three other flavors: banana, grape, and cherry.
Here we go with this banana crap again.
I know. These flavors do not seem to be... Like, strawberry is a stretch, and that still exists today, but these just don't seem like the Charleston Chew type flavors. So unsurprisingly, they kind of went by the wayside. An interesting fact about the Charleston Chew, once they became known, during the 20s, when they were introduced, you were getting a lot more families having at-home refrigerators and freezers. So the Fox Cross Company saw the opportunity there. They started to market it as something that would be good frozen.
Frozen, baby, yes. Throw that in the freezer.
I sampled that last night because I've got myself a box here.
Did you break off a tooth?
No, it actually was a nice consistency. It
because
wasn't
the longer
too
it
hard.
stays in your mouth, then it starts to soften up, and then it becomes something completely different.
So this is funny. In the 50s, it became a thing to freeze these things, and it became known as the Charleston Chew crack. Now, this is not the case of somebody sticking a full bar down a plumber's exposed buttocks. The Charleston Chew crack is when you freeze this in the freezer, take it out in the package and slam it. So it cracks to pieces, and then you just, open it up, pour it out, and start chomping them like popcorn.
It's like peanut brittle at that point.
Yeah. Needless to say, this was in the 50s packaged, especially for movie theaters in smaller, not quite as small as the mini Charleston Chews, but in more palatable. Yeah, they were sold at theaters and were very popular. Sold well right along with popcorn and soda. So there you have it. To this day, Charleston Chew. You can find it in this. I didn't have a hard time finding this at all. So this is readily available at most
I'll
groceries.
look next time I'm in the theater.
Yeah.
If it's up there. And then I have to break into the Charleston.
Dun, 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 dun.
Get out my flapper.
Yep.
Flapper costume. Flapper.
All right. So from the Charleston, we're gonna from the 1920s, we're gonna fast forward into the apocalyptic future
Of Australia,
or
1995.
more accurately, New Mexico, which is where they filmed.
Oh, are you telling me they did not film this in
They
Australia?
did not film this in Australia. No.
Wow, I'm already feeling lied to. Yes. So this was my choice, Tank Girl. Only because I was leaning into the girl power, and it is based on a comic book, just like Captain Marvel. You made it sound like you have never seen this movie.
After I watched this, I definitely have never seen this
Okay,
before.
well, I will tell you, when I told my wife we were going to watch this, she's like, I love Tank Girl. And I'm like, yeah, I remember we enjoyed it immensely in the theater. And as we're sitting there watching this thing unfold before us, I said, I don't remember any of this. All I remember is Ice-T is the mutant kangaroo.
My wife and your wife are complete polar opposites when it comes to movies. We've seen this with Popeye, and again with Tank Girl. She's like, when she found out we were watching, she's like, come on.
So your wife has seen it, but you had not.
Exactly. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. No, this was. I do. Like I said, I do remember last week telling you that there's some body humor. It's based on a comic book from the late 80s, early 90s. It was a British comic created by Alan Martin and Jamie Hewlett. And if you do not recognize the name Jamie Hewlett, he is one of the founding members of the virtual band Gorillaz.
Yes, along with Damon Albarn, who from Blur. He does the music for Gorillaz, and Jamie Hewlett does the characters and the animation.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. So if you look at any of those album covers or any of that artwork, it is because when you first watch this movie, they lean heavily into the fact that it's based on a comic book, to the point where sometimes entire action sequences are animated as opposed to being filmed. And from what I understand, Jamie Hewlett and Alan Martin were so disappointed with the making of this movie, and that there was large sequences that were unfilmed that they animated it just to kind of fill in the blanks, just to make the story flow a little bit better. But that's, to me, is a charm of this, is that it does lean into the animation, and that it's part and parcel with what you're watching. And it's over the top. It is very snarky. There is a lot of sexual innuendos, as I mentioned. It is not child friendly, to the point where there's a couple times where I'm like, oh yeah, that's inappropriate. that's uncalled for. Yeah. I don't have to break up some tweezers for that one. But I did think that you would at least appreciate the soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack was very nice, put together by Courtney Love.
Yeah. So a lot of 90s punk alternative bands. We got Bjork in there. Devo.
Yeah. Bjork was supposed to appear in the movie, but she dropped out.
Would she have been wearing that swan dress?
I can only hope that
would
she
have made
would
sense
have.
in a post-apocalyptic world.
She would have played a character called Subgirl, and I don't believe that character was in the movie at all. But I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the comic to know what that was.
I'm gonna. Yeah, I knew of the character. I probably had a book or two back in the day. It was a very indie underground alternative comic, but very much girl power. For better or for worse, this is what we're covering.
And again, 2 female directors here.
Yeah, Rachel Talalay.
Yeah. When I say 2 female directors, not for Tank Girl, but just for the Marvels and for Tank Girl.
Yeah. So 2 female protagonists and directors. Dan Winston Studios did all the special effects of the actual Rippers, which are these mutant human / kangaroos.
Right.
And we get our introduction to Ice-T as one of these kangaroos.
Now in the comic, they're kangaroos, basically.
They're kangaroos, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's only so much you can do. And I think this was why from what I understand, Stan Winston, he's like, we'll do this for half our regular price, because up to that point they've only done like monsters and these creatures or whatever, and they wanted to do something that was a little, it was their main characters. They don't show up until later in the movie, but they're humans with semi kangaroo pug faces. They got the big ears and they're very emoting, so the ears do a lot of work to tell you how these characters are feeling. So yeah, I think that Stan Winston was like, we need to make this happen, kind of a thing. Right. I don't know if he's proud of it now, but the man's passed. But so we're introduced to Rebecca, who is Tank Girl. Although I don't think she's ever referenced as Tank Girl in the movie itself.
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
No.
But this is Lori Petty. So this is 95. A League of Their Own was 94?
92.
92.
Yeah.
Okay. She completely inhabits this character. For better or for worse. Every scene, she's got different hairdo. Visually, it's a fun movie to watch. Maybe not to actually follow the plot, because we have Malcolm McDowell, who the year prior in 94 played the bad guy in Star Trek Generations.
Yeah, he's carving a niche for himself here as a bad guy.
He's a fun guy to look at, man. He's all in.
He's completely menacing as well.
Yes.
Although he did play H.G. Wells, he was
that's right. Oh, fantastic!
Near and dear to my heart as the nebbish H.G. Wells in Time After Time.
Time After Time with Mary Steenburgen.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes, love that movie. So yeah, the conceit is that this takes place in 2033. A comet crashed, and basically there's no water left on the planet. Water's now a commodity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're off and running. We've got these factions. We're introduced to Rebecca. She has a boyfriend in like this little safe house.
And of course, the boyfriend is a male model, because they still exist in the apocalypse. Perfect hair.
You always got to look.
They apparently have gyms as well, because he's doing crunches. Yeah.
Yes, and at one point, I think he leaves her a little note that says, "I snog you." So yes, they are very much in love until bad guys show up.
So there's a corporation that rules the wasteland.
Water and power. They really went all out with that name. Yeah.
The WP, not too far from the WB, right? And this is unfortunately not a Warner Brothers movie.
That would have been a glorious tie-in. A water tower with WB on it.
Exactly. That would have, such a talk about missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity.
And this is a very big stretch to make this statement, but this in some ways could be like a proto version of Into the Spider-Verse, with all the interspersed animations and all this frenetic stuff going on.
It's a lot to take in.
But
it's a very short movie. It's not long.
It is short, and it is exhausting to sit through this movie.
It's much, right? And the dialogue is rat-a-tat. It is, but like I said, there's a lot of sexual innuendos being thrown around. Some of them you pick up on. Yeah. And there's a little girl. What the hell is her name? Sam. They're siphoning water from a table underground. And here comes the water and power, and they take out this safe house. Boyfriend gets killed. The little girl gets kidnapped. Yeah, there's some hot oil thrown in here at one point. I don't know. There's a lot going on. It just proves that white privileged men suck no matter what year it is.
But Tank Girl herself causes her boyfriend to get killed because she's goofing around when she's supposed to be doing guard duty on the on the
she
house.
Thought it was him. She thought it was him behind her. So yeah, she's hitting on him, and she's something with some pair of scissors there going on, and bunch of guys in night vision goggles and guns, and they're ready to take him out.
So she manages to kill one or two of the guards as she's being taken captive. So because of this, Malcolm McDowell offers her a job in the WP, but she says no. So instead, they put her to work in the Temple of Doom.
Yeah, that's correct. She has to break rocks for a living.
And this is where she meets Naomi Watts.
Yeah. Naomi Watts. Was this like her first movie?
But I don't know, and I doubt that she speaks of it to this day.
Well, her character's name is Jet, and I wrote down this is the original Marcy. She's just nebbish girl, brunette with the glasses. She's basically Velma. She's a likable character, but yeah, she knows how to fly a plane, and that's about But we get these hints that there's these bigger bads that are out there called Rippers doing these guerrilla style attacks. That
are demonic mutants that have attacked all the WP outposts.
Yeah. But we find out they are, in fact, just Ice-T and a bunch of guys that have kangaroo ears.
So, yeah, they force Tank Girl, Malcolm McDowell and his cronies, they take Tank Girl out of whatever cell they have her because they had shoved her down that pipe.
What was that all about, by the way? That was just a weird torture device. Yeah.
So they take her out of there and they say, you're going to find the Rippers for us. Certainly she does. She falls right through and meets all the Rippers, who are randy, to say the least.
Yes. Well, they've been trapped. Right. There's no female kangaroos. There's just all male kangaroos.
There's so much sexual assault being threatened here by the good guys and the bad guys.
Yeah. These kangaroos are, like you said, there's actually a cut scene. Did you read this about the cut scene?
I did read about this.
Yeah. There's a $5,000 were spent on a giant kangaroo prosthetic appendage that was cut. I'm like, that's a lot of money. There's strip clubs and, apparently the apocalypse, like you said, there's no water, but people are very horny. There is a montage here where I think it was after they were in the strip club called the Liquid Silver. Rebecca it's like a closing montage. She's trying on different outfits or whatever. And my wife's like, oh, there's no way that Pink has never seen this as a huge fan. But then all these people somehow know a 100-year-old Cole Porter song. They all break into Let's Fall in Love. And it becomes like this.
Which again, just like the Marvels, they're right in the middle of this movie.
They break into dance, yeah.
There's a musical number.
Yeah. So you're right. Again, like the opening of Marvels, where you got Kamala doing the animation and the little hand-drawn stuff. So in that regard, it does kind of tie it. But yeah, they just break into this Busby burlesque dance thing. You're right. It's a lot.
There's an Iggy Pop cameo as well.
Yes. Yeah, there's I did catch it in the Rippers high secret lab, or their little hideout headquarters. There was a Super Pac-Man game, freestanding arcade behind them. Mm-hmm. I don't remember a Super Pac-Man, and I
don't either.
And I didn't have the time to actually look that up. It's goofy. It's over the top. Malcolm McDowell has a holographic head.
Yes, yeah, and he short circuits and explodes at the end.
Yeah, and after his hand gets crushed.
Yeah.
So I will say this was 13 years. This was a bit of its head of its time as far as taking this comic book property, because it was 13 years before Iron Man came out.
Every once in a while, you'd see this random comic book movie released, aside from the DC movies, of course, the Superman movies of the late 70s, early 80s. Every once in a while, you'd see like a random comic book movie, not necessarily Marvel. Sometimes it was Marvel. Sometimes you'd get a Punisher, or you'd get a Blade, or, one of these peripheral characters, or sometimes you'd get something like this, like a Tank Girl that was based on.
Yeah. And this was, like I said, the comic itself was hugely popular.
Yeah.
So somebody jumped on this right away. It's not as bawdy as the comic. The comic itself, like I said, it was an alternative. It was an indie comic, so they got away with a lot more. And I think that's one of the complaints about this, is that it doesn't lead into the source material enough. But I remember
It would
seeing
be
this
it
in
would
the
be
theater.
X-rated. It would be X-rated if they were
Yes,
to
correct.
do that.
Right. It would be Barbarella. It is kind of like a kiddie version of Barbarella. There's sexual stuff going on here, but I did find it. There's a lot of pop culture references for a movie that takes place in 2033. I'm like, these people don't remember any, especially if it's a post-apocalyptic. It's like the whole world's gone. You're not going to the theater. But you were saying that Iggy Pop is probably not proud of this, and I know that Ice-T, whenever he gets called out for this role, his only response is, I got paid $800,000. So he's pulling a Michael Caine / Jaws revenge there. He's like, I made some money. I don't care what you think of it.
Yeah.
Spielberg was asked to produce, but declined because he failed. He felt that he was not hip enough for it. So this actually led to the film's slogan, "Too hip for Spielberg."
That I think he was just being nice. I'm not hip enough for this. I'm gonna slowly step out of the room and keep my eye on you as I'm doing so. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
Does the tank respond to her? Because she often whistles for it and it comes like a dog.
And there's no way that's the same tank that we see at the beginning of the movie. They doll it up, and there's a nice big A-Team style sequence going on where they pimp it out. But I don't know. Yeah, it makes it like it's like she's in control of it, kind of a thing. It's goofy. It's after I watched it, I'm like, oh, Jim's gonna hate me.
So again, I never saw this, initially, and I think because I was turned off by the poster, and this movie absolutely is everything that poster makes it out to be. Lori Petty is so, again, I'll use the word exhausting in this. I don't even think she's acting. It's like they just run the camera and it's like, okay, just do what you want. Just do what you want.
She is.
There's no stakes. Doesn't seem worried about anything that's going on. Anything she says is a quip. It's hard to get into the story when it just seems like the character is either posing or trying to be funny or goofy,
Yeah, it's like it is Deadpool taken to the nth degree. Well, there's no ramifications. It's just
it's 90s. I'll give it that. It is like I said last week.
I remember walking out of the theater. I walk out of the theater going, "Holy crap, that was awesome!" It's just 2 hours. It's an hour and a half or whatever of just being bombarded. And again, I don't think up to that point you'd really seen anything quite like it, for better or for worse.
Right.
The fact that they were leaning that much into the comic lore of it all. So I apologize to you.
No.
I thought it was a fun girl power pairing.
Some interesting facts that I pulled from this. Rachel Talalay, hope I'm pronouncing that right, the director, turned down an offer from Disney to produce because she knew that whatever she got away with here wasn't even gonna fly with Disney. So I think quite rightly so, she turned Disney down and MGM eventually released it. A $25 million budget. Only made $6 million at the box office.
They probably got my $7.
Yeah, it did. It did. Released in March of 1995, right in the middle of the 90s, smack dab in the middle. The legend goes that 2 of the Spice Girls met during auditions for Tank Girl.
There you go. See? History in the making
although really, from what I'm reading, there's some cynics that say that these auditions that were held to cast the role were just publicity stunts, that they weren't even planning on casting the role from the auditions.
I thought you were just going to say Weinstein was somehow involved.
No.
Yeah.
But there is actual film footage showing both Ginger Spice and Posh Spice standing in line at the audition in London next to each other. So they met apparently at this audition.
Oh, I didn't get the role. I didn't get the job either. Let's start a band. I did see Naomi Watts auditioned 9 times before she got this role.
Wow.
That's a lot of times. She beat out the Spice Girls. I wonder who had the better end of the deal there.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like you said, it's a lot to take in. It is.
It wasn't panned completely. There's a lot of positive reviews. And obviously it's seen as a cult film today. And
yes, very much appreciated as a cult film.
At Comic-Cons to this day, there's Tank Girl cosplayers that show up. Some of the reviews, Roger Ebert gave the film 2 out of 4, so he was right in the middle.
All right.
He praised the film's ambition, but said that its manic energy wore him down. I'm like, I'm right with you. And that's
exactly, I was going to say, that's pretty much where you are, that it is a lot to take in. You need a nap after this.
Owen Gleiberman, Entertainment Weekly at the time, said Petty's performance was the only good part of the otherwise amateurish film, and gave it a C-. I wouldn't say it's amateurish.
No, I think
it is very
aptly
it is
filmed.
90s. Like if you even see 2 seconds of this, that's a 90s movie. Just that they have a certain look about them.
Yeah.
Especially 90s sci-fi movies.
You know, the soundtrack, like I said, the soundtrack alone is enough to be like, yeah, I know where this was made. I'm glad they cut out the Booga prosthetic. We don't think we need to see that. That would have put it completely over the top.
Yeah, that would have haunted my from this day forward. It would have haunted me. Yeah.
Just talking about it probably is enough to send you into therapy.
Yeah. All right. So buckets out of 5. Just for the 90s-ness of it all. Again, it was too much for me, but I did appreciate the soundtrack, and it was a flashback. Nonetheless, I'm going to give it 2 buckets out of 5.
Okay, I'm going to go one higher than you. I'm going to give it 3 because there is a lot of ambition, as you said. There's a lot on here that they tried to do, and I think in today's day and age, there's a lot of the stuff that just doesn't age well. Listen, I guess if I was going to make a comic book movie, this is what I would do. They leaned into the source material as much as possible, humanly possible. Unfortunately, the 2 creators of the comic had a horrible experience. They had very little. I guess they were writing the script and tried their best to shoehorn, being British, they're shoehorning in Benny Hill jokes. And, when you're dealing with a studio, sometimes they don't get it. So I'm surprised they got away with as much as they did. Yeah, it's streaming. So if you want to go check it out, I watched it on Tubi, I think.
So did I. Did I.
That's the one thing we say all the time about these streaming movies. At least they're going out of the way to kind of clean them up. So there you go. Tank Girl. And we'll never need to speak about it again.
So what else did we do?
Are we going to just kind of cover this Loki now?
I think we should talk about it.
I think we need to, because I think exactly what we just spoke with the Marvels and the idea that these multiverses are out there now. This is, speaking of ambition, there's a lot going on with these 6 episodes, and that's all it is.
There is. And when season 2 started, it ended with a huge cliffhang because Sylvie has killed He Who Remains.
Right.
And so Loki gets shoved through a portal by Sylvie so she can get him out of the way so she can do the damage to He Who Remains. Because her whole deal is that she believes that she's a victim of He Who Remains, because she's from an alternate timeline that he has set up the TVA to destroy, because he's trying to stop this multiversal war. And so she feels he has no right to do that, to kill all these whole timelines of people and lives and what have you. She takes him out at the end because he tells them that if they do that, they are going to unleash all these timelines, all these branches.
Right.
And he's the only one keeping them at bay because he wants to stop himself.
He's like a cipher. Yeah.
And she doesn't listen to him. And Loki's like, I think he's making some sense here. Maybe we should not kill him.
No, she's a little strong-headed.
Yeah. So she kills him. And she shoves Loki out a portal. And the portal that he's shoved out of, it turns out that he goes way back in time before Mobius knew who he was, to the TVA. And this is in the days when He Who Remains was very open about being the leader of the TVA.
He was not hidden away, right?
Well, it wasn't an alternate reality that he went to. It was just further back in time.
Yeah, because the TVA exists outside of the timeline.
So that's my question: is how can you go back in time to the TVA when it exists outside of time?
Oh, you're already asking too many questions. But we had to wait 2 years. Think about this. It's been almost 2 years since that season 1 finale dropped, and we had to wait, and we got the Sony Spider-Man and all this other stuff. And you're like, all right, we see these timelines branching and exploding. So that's what you're thinking is gonna, this is it moving forward. This is Quantumania. This is where all this stuff is coming from. And then they were very compartmentalized stories that didn't really tie back into Kang. And now Jonathan Major's character, even though we know he's Kang, and he in that episode even says, I've been called many names, Centurion, Scarlet, there's Kang, the Conqueror, I am He Who Remains. And that is what they refer to him throughout this new series. He's never once referred to as Kang, even though we know that, and we know that from Quantumania. And at the end credits of Quantumania, you see multiple Kangs that have been unleashed because he was killed.
Yeah, that just raises more questions.
Yes. Yeah.
So the crux of what's going on in season 2 is that Loki is time slipping.
Yes.
So again, you got to put the Kang storyline to the side, because now Loki has to save the TVA to prevent the multiversal war, right? So that's what pretty much the entirety of season 2.
We don't know what this we're just being told there's a multiversal war coming. And because of what we saw in Quantumania, like, oh, I guess all these Kangs get together and create chaos. Right. It's him trying to control these time slips. And he comes to grips pretty quickly that he needs to stop Sylvie from killing him, because he attempts to somehow modify the TVA's machinery in order to take in all these additional branches, and he can never do it. OB, who is Ki-Hoi Kwan, doing a fantastic. This guy took way too long to come back to acting, and he's really kind of doing a Data voice from Goonies. Yeah, he's really leaning, because that's not his voice that he used when he was doing Everything Everywhere All at Once. This character is so lovable.
So he's kind of like like the tech support, right? Ouroboros, yeah, he's
kind of like
of the TVA.
And you find out that he wrote the handbook for the TVA, but did he? So there's a lot of time travel stuff going on, and by the end, you're basically getting into Groundhog Day territory.
Yeah, and then you're of course introduced to Victor Timely, who
is fantastic. Yes. This makes me so mad. So let's talk about this, because we have seen Jonathan Majors play this character twice now, and we know that every variant is going to be treated slightly. And was it at the end? Where do we get the tease?
Quantumania.
Okay, where we saw that Mobius and Loki were in 1893 World's Fair or whatever, and Victor Timely. And he's this super genius, but he stutters. And I love this character. This could all go away with the legal problems that's going on with this actor. And right now, Marvel has not committed one way or the other. But by the end of this show, they've given themselves a little bit of an out, that they could just kind of like write off Kang and be like, all right, well, we resolved that and move on. And we may never see this character again, or he may be recast and they just say he's a variant.
Yeah, they could easily do that, because
he knocks this out of the park. He is fantastic. I absolutely love this character.
So over the course of these 6 episodes, He Who Remains seemingly senses his own death coming, and gets Miss Minutes, who has been working with him all along nefariously, a little, orange clock cartoon.
Tara Strong, by the way.
To go back to the 1800s and drop a copy of the TVA guidebook to Victor Timely. For what purpose? Because is Victor Timely supposed to have now found the TVA?
Right. Yeah, because they find out that, he gets slipped. Renslayer goes back in time and drops it through his window as a kid.
Oh, it's Renslayer. It's not Miss Minutes.
Yeah, okay. But she was working with Ms. Minutes.
But then we find out later that these are just breadcrumbs that He Who Remains is leaving for Loki. It's not really the end game for getting Victor Timely the TVA guidebook. It's just getting Loki back to that moment in time when Loki finally realizes, after a century of trying to learn physics on the level of OB to save the TVA.
Right. That's what I said. You're now dealing like Groundhog Day level, where he just keeps trying to go back in time to fix it.
And he finally figures out, well, I got to go kill Sylvie. There's an easier way to do this.
But He Who Remains told him that you have to make the hard choices. You have to stop working so hard. Trying to fix it. You know what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And this is the weird thing, because Loki, this is the Loki from the original Avengers movie.
Yes.
If anyone remembers, he steals a Tesseract and he escapes in time. So he was never incarcerated, and he becomes, he gets captured by the TVA because he's a variant. And he goes quickly from being a bad guy to being an ally with Mobius and the TVA. And so the whole time you're like, this is fun and this is really cool, but this is not the Loki. Like, he's not the Loki that we've known that is the god of mischief. The one thing I will say, they're very smart when you do the previously on kind of setup, and they give you the little teasers, and he tells Mobius at one point, I have a glorious purpose. And Sylvie at the same time is telling him, you know, what do you want? What is it that you want? He goes, well, I want to stop this. No. Beyond that, what do you want? So it takes him, there's a lot of character development with this guy. And by the end, he makes the ultimate sacrifice, which is very interesting.
Or does he? Because does he get what he wants at the end? Because he's sitting on a throne.
He gets his throne. But right, so he gets what he wants in the sense that he is now sitting on a throne. Like, he has I will say the production value on this is fantastic. It's all practical. There's there's a couple scenes where they're in the state fair, and it just seems very CG. Maybe they filmed it in green screen or something. But beyond that, everything is physical. The sets are all physical.
Because it's usually very insular, like the TVA, right. Except for like the outside the windows where you see the loom.
Correct, right. Yeah. Which we all know is just, some CG guy working overtime. Right. Mobius is like, well, until this is all fixed, let's go have some pie. And there's this commissary, which is gorgeously, it's so simplistic because it looks like 1960s cafeteria. It's just all walls with the little porch with the key lime pies in them. But there's a scene between Loki and Sylvie, and it's probably in the fifth or sixth episode, and it's shot low where the two of them, and you see the ceiling, and it's like these orange ball patterns that kind of look like Miss Timely. And they have this whole speech about, you want to be a god. You're trying to make these decisions. And he's just like, we are gods. And then he walks out and he just becomes like this. There's my question.
Nice... There's my question as well. Is he, though? He's adopted. He has no bloodline to Odin.
But I think that's always been his conceit, is that he feels it doesn't matter that he was adopted. He is royalty and he should be treated as such, and that he is somehow better than Thor ever was. Although he did have that comment where he was like, my brother was a jerk, but then he went to Earth, and when he came back, he came back changed. And I always thought it was weakness because he cared about these people. But now I find myself like, he's fighting because he wants his friends. He's never had relationships. He's never had.
In a way, the same thing happened to the Loki that we know through the MCU that was killed in Infinity War.
Right.
Because he also had a change of heart over time.
Yeah. So it's true to the character. They just both came to it in different regards. But yes, when they're continually trying to send Victor out there to fix this, the loom, which they decide needs to be opened up. It can't accommodate all of these timelines flowing through it. It needs to be, it expands. And every time he walks out, he immediately gets annihilated.
Because of the radiation that's out there. Yes,
correct. And no matter how many times Loki goes back and he kinds of fix it, maybe he gets 2 steps out. Maybe he gets, one time he made it all the way out. So there's a point where Loki was just like, I need to do this myself. Mm-hmm. And so he takes control. He makes it out there because they actually OB was able to turn off the failsafe system that allowed them to use magic in the TVA.
Right. Or I think it just like the power surge knocked it out or something, right? Or did OB do that?
Well, no, because at one point they're like, we had to reset it. And then, if we reset it, then
the magic's not, that magic guard is not going to be there anymore.
Yeah. And Loki and Sylvie are both like, turn it off. Like, let us use our powers.
Yeah.
So, and what he does is basically he takes all of the timelines, all the multiverse, and he's now sitting on the throne, and he is in control of them.
Because he is able to literally grab them, gather them together into like the tree of time, for lack of a better term, which is like a Norse. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the word. But.
It's Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil. And it was mentioned, I think, in Dark World, which I just chastised before. But I think that Thor mentioned it, the balance, a tree of life, balance between life and death kind of a thing. But so now he's got his glorious purpose. He's sitting on his throne and he is controlling these timelines.
So to really break it down simply, he is now he who remains.
Yeah.
He has taken over that role.
But you did notice that he immediately made a changed. So even when everything was kind of reset and the TVA is back up and running and Mobius is sitting at his desk and whatever, you notice that little Victor Timely did not receive the TVA handbook. So he has changed that. So Victor Timely never becomes that character.
Or unless he comes to it on his own, without the help of the TVA handbook.
Right. But he made that because he had
the
TV,
guidebook. I guess
right.
You're
so
right.
So this is the chicken or the egg scenario. I think Obi at one point even said, "Oh, it's like a snake eating its own tail." It's like who came first.
Yeah.
And there's a great sequence when Obi is introduced to Victor and they both realized, hey, you're the guy who wrote this book. Oh, wait a minute. No, I wrote the book because of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And Sylvie, who I was mad at by the end of the first season, I think she kind of came around in the sense that like she never wavered from what she felt. It took Loki a very long time to come to the realization of what she already realized. So
she's just trying to save multitudes of timelines.
Yeah. Well, like she said to Mobius at one point, she's like, it's all lines to you. You're just sitting in your office looking at like you don't like there's a real people. There's real, and until he goes back to the one timeline and he sees himself with his kids that he had a life, because they all get displaced and get put back into their timelines because they realize that the TVA stole them and put them in these positions. And so there's a lot going on. We did get confirmation at the end because they do make mention of the events that took place in Quantumania.
Yes, they do. They said
that our Earth is 616.
But I always assumed that our Earth 616 was the sacred timeline.
That was my always take.
So why wouldn't they call it the sacred timeline instead of just calling it 616?
Damn you! Now you're throwing a monkey wrench into my.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not, because I have read that where they said that the Marvel timeline in the MCU is not the 616. So does that mean that Ant-Man?
But it was the 616 is what happened in Quantumania,
right?
According to this,
yeah. But that's what I'm saying before, where they could easily kind of dismiss this Kang moving forwards. That we've kind of neutralized it.
Right.
We've taken away Victor Timely's access to the TVA.
We've taken away He Who Remains.
Right. And no, the only anomaly we've got was this event that happened in 616 and they took care of it themselves.
Yep. And they're keeping an eye on it from this point on.
Yeah. Although I will tell you, we do know the next Avengers movie is being called Kang Dynasty, but I guess at some point they could change it.
Yes, they could. They could easily do that.
But this is what really makes me sad.
But let me ask this. I'm going to, this is again, looking maybe too closely at this thing, but Mobius says that it's a 616 adjacent realm. They had an issue with him. So the realm he's talking about is the quantum realm, which is also supposed to be outside of time and space. So I assumed that's the whole reason that Kang could even exist without the TVA knowing that he was there, because it's outside of time and space.
Yeah, because it's outside time and space.
So they can't prune him because they don't know he's there. So how do they know at that scene that they had a problem on a 616 adjacent realm?
Maybe, I don't know. I guess somebody made a paper report.
And so that also,
you're making my head hurt
if
now.
the quantum realm is outside of time and space, then how come Michelle Pfeiffer is old when she comes back to?
She should have been the same age.
She should have.
I don't know. And I don't know where and when we'll ever see Loki again.
I don't think we will, because when he went on the Tonight Show with Brie Larson, he said that it was the end of a 14-year journey with the MCU. Tom Hiddleston said this.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you implied that Loki actually showed up.
No. Great. So I think that he's done, that you're not going to see Loki again.
So this is kind of like what they did with the Red Skull. You put him in a higher place.
Yeah.
You're taking this character, but yeah, no, because the other Loki was killed. You're right. In Infinity or in Endgame. Like anybody else, there could be variants.
Yeah, they could, if they really wanted to, they could easily.
Listen, the fact that they're even toying with the idea of bringing back the original Avengers,
which we don't know, that's just out there. That could be rumor.
Right?
Yeah,
it is rumor. But if enough people are like, yeah, that's what we want to see, then they'll make it happen. Me purposely, you got to keep moving, move on.
Mm-hmm.
Those movies are near and dear to all of us. I enjoyed this. I thought this was great. I thought this was.
I really
a lot. Yeah.
I'm really disappointed though that it's over. I would have loved to seen it. Maybe they could have extended it a little bit more, but it is very satisfying.
But for 6 episodes, there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on. It is a satisfying conclusion.
And especially like you said, we talk about Tank Girl and just how exhausting it is. That last episode is a lot to take in. When he time trips, he does this wonky arm flail. And at one point they actually put him in front of one of those wacky wild arm guys in front of the Ski-Doo place that Mobius works at.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, that's a little too spot on, but kind of funny at the same time. So,
and I love the effect whenever one of the timelines breaks down, how it like all the lines of each person, the tendrils come, they just unwind from each person.
Yeah. But we even saw that in the TVA itself.
Yeah. It looks like vegetation is growing, but it's actually just it all coming apart.
Yeah. Yeah. So very well done.
Yes.
Yeah. So Marvel can do this type of stuff on this small scale on these TV shows. And I like these smaller shows where you get a lot more character development and story. And I think I read somewhere that they're now going to brand these TV shows. They're going to be a little more outside of the story arcs. They're not going to tie in directly to the actual movies so much. Because once again, our co-host points out numerous times that you got to do a lot of homework, even like the Marvels. Do I need to go back and watch Ms. Marvel? Where do I now have to go back and watch WandaVision so I know who Monica is?
Yeah, because even if you have no idea, they do try to give you that. Well, I got my powers because I walked through a witch hex.
Yeah.
Which is still, like, even though you're being told that, you're like, well, what does that mean?
Right.
All
right, I guess I'm going to go back and watch it. But again, you don't need it in order to follow what's going on. But yeah, as a comic book nerd, and the way you remember the old school comics where, so a character would remember that fight with Dr. Doom, and they would put a little asterisk and it would be a little editor's note, go back to issue 216 and watch the whole thing. Like that's what it's coming down to. And as a comic book guy, I love that. It all just kind of ties in, but yeah, it's a lot after a while.
Yeah.
And especially when you're talking 23, 24, some cinematic movies at that point.
Yeah.
So
take away from this episode, go see the Marvels, watch season 2 of Loki.
Yes. Yeah. Now that we just spoiled everything for you.
Yeah.
We need a break. I could go for some turkey.
Next week, our huge yearly episode talking about turkey, our Thanksgiving Monster Fest, the TMI Thanksgiving Monster Fest. And this year, again, we are doing a Godzilla King Kong theme, going with Godzilla Raids Again, otherwise known as Gigantus the Fire Monster.
Okay.
We will get into this about the history of this title.
So.
The U.S. title is Gigantus the Fire Monster.
Did he get 2 paychecks?
I just want to mention.
Does he get a paycheck as Godzilla and as
I would hope so, because he is doing double duty.
Yes, correct.
If this is a what if scenario, but if Gigantus the Fire Monster was a runaway hit in America, would the creature from that point on be known as Gigantus and not Godzilla?
Oh man, that's heartbreaking to
because if that film was a hit and going forward the monster would have been called Gigantus and not Godzilla, you would have got King Kong versus Gigantus, or Gigantus versus Megalon, or Gigantus versus Mecha Gigantus. So I would have
been happier if Roland Emmerich's movie was actually called Gigantus.
Yes, that would have been. I would have.
That I'm all on board for.
Yeah. Even if it was the same movie, I would have loved it if it was called Gigantus.
Yeah, the giant lizard that attacked Manhattan.
So that's what we're talking about next week is Godzilla Raids Again, aka Gigantus the Fire Monster, along with not a King Kong movie per se, but a Kong adjacent, just like
one extra vowel.
Just like the quantum realm is a adjacent realm to 616, this is a Kong adjacent movie, Konga. From 1961.
We could have had a Gigantus versus Konga movie.
We could have, yeah. In an alternate reality.
Yes.
It would have been.
Yep. So bring your maracas because we're starting a conga line.
And bring your leftovers as well.
Oh, turkey sandwiches all around.
Yeah.
Do you eat turkey leftovers?
Oh, of course. Stuffing leftovers, turkey leftovers.
Do you put it all on the sandwich?
Yes, I have been known to do so.
Okay.
I have. Yes.
Oh man, now I can't wait. Thanksgiving.
That's next week.
We'll watch a parade first, and then we'll get into movies.
We will.
Okay.
Since they don't play them anymore on TV, we got to make our own Thanksgiving Monster Fest.
We do indeed have to make our own Monster Fest.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much for listening. Get out there, go see the Marvels. Don't listen to the critics. That's all I got to say.
Yes, and that's all that needs to be said.
And as Jim would say, stay away from Tank Girl.
I didn't want to say anything negative going out.
Oh, stop.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, bye.
All right, bye. Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
You're cool. I like you.